What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael, and today I'm going to be talking about something that blew me away before Skyrim even released, a YouTube video someone had uploaded called Laying Carpets. This title, of course, was a complete trick, chosen to avoid detection and ultimately video removal. The actual content was leaked footage of Elder Scrolls V Skyrim and an early part of the companion storyline, the moment when you're trapped behind a gate and you see Farkas transform into a werewolf to defeat a group of Silverhand fighters. Besides the fact that I was seeing actual gameplay from Skyrim, I now knew there would be werewolves in the game, and I was over the moon to later discover that I could in fact become one. Eventually, however, we adapt to this gift we are given, or curse if you listen to Kodlak, and can even grow bored of it. Playing as a werewolf is fun at first, even overpowered at early stages of the game, but as time goes by and you not only grow accustomed to your abilities, but also realize that werewolves end up underpowered at higher levels, it just leaves you howling for something more. Get to a high enough level and you're probably going to end up weaker as a werewolf than your normal form high level character, who probably has strong spells and or weapons, buffed up armor, various enchantments, and other advantages that a werewolf lacks. Many mods have taken their shot at addressing this over the years, and if you've been following our channel for a while, perhaps you remember our Fenrir Let's Play, where we sunk our claws into the Moonlight Tales mod to enhance our werewolf experience. Well, today we're going to freshen things up and get wild with a much newer mod released earlier this year, introducing Growl Werebeasts of Skyrim by Ination. This mod is an absolute blessing from Hircine for any werewolf or werebear playthrough, allowing you to tear your way through the hillsides of Skyrim smoother than ever before. The mod page describes it as more of a lightweight overhaul, and that is certainly the case compared to some other werewolf mods. As stated on the mod page, you can install it mid-playthrough, and it aims to function as a vanilla plus experience, not taking over or imbalancing the game, but don't let that fool you into thinking there's not much to it. Besides adding the option to play as a werebear, it improves combat in a variety of ways. It scales better and has unique leveling mechanics, meaning the werebeast form stays powerful in the endgame. The perks are reworked and improved, you've got transformations based on the moon cycles, and way more quality of life enhancements, such as being able to loot corpses and interact with containers. It overhauls the different howls and even grants you a unique werebeast bonus depending on your race, which I absolutely love. Argonians, for example, deal poison damage with their claws. As with my video covering the Winter Sun mod, which you can find linked below, this is not just a quick mod overview. This will be a full in-depth guide taking you through everything on offer. So now let's unleash the beast and uncover everything about this mod. First, consider that Growl actually provides some drawbacks for your character, with your beast blood making you take 20 extra damage from silver weapons and giving you a 25% weakness to fire. As you'd expect, you will be immune to disease, and this plus those weaknesses are all active in mortal form too. As a werebeast, your carry weight will be increased by 500 points, unlike the base game where carry weight was increased drastically but would only serve as a kind of exploit to escape an area while over-encumbered. Using the Growl mod actually allows you to loot, meaning the extra carry weight granted can actually be capitalized on. You can loot the corpses you can feed on in werebeast form, as well as containers. Ingredients can also be collected, however, as you'd expect for role-playing reasons, we can't do any lockpicking as that would just stretch things a bit too far. That said, there is a howl-related perk that can help out with this, which we'll talk about later. After activating beast form, it will last for 150 seconds, just like with vanilla. However, instead of a once per day power, it has a 90-second cooldown before you can use it again. If you trigger it using another method, such as a specific ordinator perk that makes powers activate, the cooldown will not be started. Furthermore, if you use a shout before transforming, the shout cooldown will be paused, and you can start using howl straight away if you want, and then the shout cooldown will resume when you revert form. Speaking of which, you can revert form at will by holding down the power button after 10 seconds seconds have passed. With 90-second cooldowns available for this power, being a werebeast is much easier and can be used with great frequency. That said, the Ring of Hircine still remains desirable as it removes the cooldown entirely, giving you full control. It also prevents Call of the Blood, which is the effect placed upon you that gives you a chance to transform uncontrollably at night based on the moon cycles. Your chance will range between 0 and 40% based on the current moon phase, with the chance higher if the moons are full and lower if they are dark. When this occurs, you won't be able to revert form until 30 seconds after becoming a werewolf, which makes things a bit trickier if you're near friendly NPCs, such as in a city. Luckily, the Growl mod will warn you shortly before the transformation occurs, giving you a bit of time to run away from populated areas if that's what you want. Forced transformations are definitely fun for roleplaying, but the mod author and I seem to agree on the idea that having them occur with no warning at all would simply discourage players from entering cities at night. That said, don't think you get told 5 minutes in advance. Going into a city at night can still feel risky as there's only about 10 to 15 seconds of notice before you'll want to have exited any crowded places to avoid unwanted conflict. It all feels quite exciting. With your werebeast prowess, you won't take any damage from falls, meaning you can jump from high places to get the drop on your foes or escape from a high area with no fears. This may sound unrealistic, but in my experience, if you're actually playing Skyrim seriously and not just trying to jump off the highest point of the throat of the world just for the sake of making it look silly, I find that taking no fall damage after jumping from reasonably high places actually enhances the roleplaying and immersion of being a werebeast. Speaking of lore, there's an optional mod you can download in the file section of Growl called Half-Beast Visuals for Growl, and it adds claws and bits of fur to your character in mortal form. You also gain an unarmed swipe attack for extra damage in combat, but it's not too compatible with body and race mods, so I don't really use it with my setup. How lore friendly it is hard to say, but to be fair, guards do say to you that you have a wolfish grin, smell like a wet dog, and ask, "Is that fur coming out of your ears?" when you have lycanthropy, indicating that there is some kind of slight visual change to mortal form. Just know if you want to customize your character that way, you can. Health will still be increased by 50 points, but of course this can be enhanced with the new perks, which we'll talk about later in the video, and you'll actually end up with an armor rating now too. Your werebeast skin grants you 60 base armor plus 6 per character level up to level 50, which, if my calculations are correct, means you'll end up with 360 points of base armor. Having this armor is a whole lot nicer at later levels than having none like in vanilla. You also won't get obliterated by high level mages either, as your werebeast skin also grants you 25% magic resistance plus 1% per character level up to level 50, which should give you an end game of 75% magic resistance as a werewolf. Now this is quite powerful, and I like to think of it as a gift from Hircine for becoming so strong and an incentive to stay true to the beast form. Werebeast attacks deal 10 base damage plus 1 per character level up to level 50, and of course damage gets enhanced further by your perks. Your claws will also deal 10 points of bleed damage, healing you for the same amount, which helps keep you in the fight for longer. Speaking of which, you'll still be able to restore 50 points of health every time you feed, which continues to extend the duration of your beast form by another 30 seconds. In vanilla Skyrim, however, you needed a perk to feed on animal corpses, but now you can do it from the get-go, which honestly just makes things much more convenient. Stamina regeneration remains at 20% of your maximum stamina per second, with movement speed increased by 15%. What's quite unique here, which I really like, is that the Growl mod will also be friendly for mage characters. What actually happens is 100% of your base magicka gets transferred to stamina when you enter beast form, which is useful considering werebeasts can't use magicka, and to me, I rationalize it as the raw power levels remaining relevant and helping in beast form. Think of some old arcane wizard who has massive magic reserves beginning to shapeshift into a powerful werewolf. I don't know about you, but in my head I still imagine him to retain quite a large amount of his power force, for lack of better words, regardless of his form. So raising stamina or magicka will result in more stamina in beast form, and keep in mind that the starting 100 magicka that warriors may not ever use will still be transferred over, granting the same stamina boost to your werebeast werebeast as vanilla Skyrim. But what else is new? Well, as mentioned earlier, things scale differently now, and experience gain is totally different. So one of the problems with being a werewolf in Skyrim vanilla was that you couldn't actually gain experience in werewolf form. Combat prowess also didn't help, which I understand from one perspective kind of makes sense considering you're a whole new beast entirely. However, if you think about it, surely having combat experience should help out a bit. I mean, knowing how to take advantage of opponents when they present weak spots, and how to strike or attack someone with the right timing, or even how to maneuver yourself based on incoming damage, versus some whelp who has never seen a drop of bloodshed in their whole life. You should have some kind of advantage as the experienced person, right? Well, the Growl mod actually adds an additional 0.5 points of damage per level of your highest weapon skill, and plus 3 points of armor rating per level in your highest armor skill up to level 100. It may not make perfect sense, but to me it still makes playing a werewolf much more enjoyable and viable than vanilla Skyrim. It's also neat that you'll gain experience in your highest weapon skill and highest armor skill when you feed, and the amount of experience gained is based on the corpse's level. What's nice about this, besides incentivizing feeding during or after your rampages, is that you can actually play Skyrim as a werebeast extremely frequently, to the point where it actually becomes your main playstyle form and makes you stronger as you use it, as opposed to just being a form that sometimes facilitates your main humanoid form build. If your skills are the same level, it will prioritize one-handed over two-handed and two-handed over archery. It will also prioritize light armor over heavy armor, but most likely you're going to have one skill above another anyway. So overall, your power in mortal form will enhance your werebeast form, and your werewolf experience will enhance your mortal form, helping you become more powerful, level up more, and get higher stats as you do so. Now, I will admit it does sound a bit silly to say a skill like archery can level by you playing as a werewolf, but overall I can see why it was included so that hunter or archer type characters were not dissuaded from being a werebeast. Just try it for yourself and you'll see that the Growl mod incentivizes and facilitates a very werebeast heavy playthrough. For mages, this system poses some interesting considerations. Things are slightly more advantageous for warriors, but mages still benefit a lot too, outside of just magicka converting to stamina. You see, mages playing as a werewolf will, by default, start raising their highest weapon and armor skills, and eventually have them reach level 100, all the while their werebeast damage is rising and ends up maxed out, and they don't need to waste perk points in warrior skills or ruin their build, as it's just based on skills, not perks. Raising these skills will help mages level up faster too, gaining access to higher stats, which they'd probably choose in the form of increased magic, which will come back to benefit stamina as a werebeast, and more perks, which instead of putting them in any heightened warrior skills, they'll just chuck into their mage skills that they actually care about. Obviously, if you're being super perfectionist with your build, maybe you don't want to level quicker due to skills you don't use as a mortal, but if you are playing as a werebeast frequently, which would kind of be the point of this, you're going to want that increased damage. And besides, as a mage, there's often plenty of perks that you want that you don't have the perk points for yet. So honestly, if you're just getting some more mage perks and more magicka by leveling some potentially irrelevant warrior skills as a werewolf, which are really the two main things that actually help mages, that is the perks and more magicka, then it's a large win for the most part. And again, you can't really say those warrior skills are irrelevant if they are increasing your damage in werebeast form. Again, you could nitpick this system if you wanted to, but generally speaking, I found it works out pretty clean and you have a good time, making werewolves super viable regardless of your humanoid playstyle. Now let's talk about how to receive the beast blood so you can become a werebeast, and then we can talk about all the different powers you'll get, including the special ones dependent on your race. The ways of receiving the beast blood in the Growl mod work nicely due to their simplicity, and also not shoehorning you into joining the Companions Guild if you want to be a werewolf. That said, to become a werebear specifically, you will have to activate any of the totems you unlock in the additional quests done after completing the companion story to get that option. Functionally, werebears are the same as werewolves and only differ cosmetically and in whether or not one of your hows will summon ethereal werewolves or werebears to aid you. To receive the beast blood, you can do it the vanilla way by going through the companion storyline and doing the ritual with Ayla in the Underforge, or you can ask Hircine to grant you the power after experiencing a vision while dreaming. To make this happen, you'll need to be sleeping outdoors at night under a clear sky, and it can only occur once. What I do to make it happen quickly is just find an outdoor bandit camp, clear it out, and then keep selecting to sleep 1 hour over and over again at a bedroll throughout the night until I get the dream option to pop up. You can also come across werebeast blood, a rare ingredient that you can find in the pockets of warlocks and forsworn, or taken from the corpses of wild werewolves. In my experience, it's not something you'll find too often, and you can also potentially have it in stock at alchemy vendors such as Elgrim's Elixirs in Riften. Overall, these extra methods are great if you just want to do a playthrough where you're not sure if you'll be a werewolf and you'll just see how you feel as you go along, particularly if you know from the very beginning that your build won't be joining the companions. It's also just not you who can be a werebeast. If you get the Spread the Beast Blood perk, you can actually give your follower beast blood by trading them werebeast blood and accepting the dialogue box. When they're your follower, you can tell them whether or not you want them to enter beast form in combat, and they'll turn into a werebear or werewolf depending on what you are, unless they're a character who is meant to be a werewolf already in the lore, in which case their form is already determined. Now, while they're meant to be the same form as you, I did get a glitch where Lydia stayed a werebear, but I was a werewolf. And it's not just you and your companion who you can see as a werebeast. You can also see fights between other werebeasts and their enemies out in the wild at night. And overall, those random werebeast encounters you could have in vanilla Skyrim will now be slightly more common. I think we can all agree they are far too rare in vanilla. The Silverhand will also feature more frequently, and they'll actually come looking for you if you change into beast form with witnesses or leave a trail of devoured corpses in your wake. Silverhand elite werebeast hunters will come in larger and stronger groups the more patrols are sent. If you want to get their attention, I've noticed if you just go and slaughter a city, they'll be hot on your tail not too long after. Also, do note that we're using the unplayable faction armors mod in this video, which gives the Silverhand a unique armor and sometimes even crossbows. We just think it really adds some flair to the faction, making them feel more unique and less like generic bandits. Let's talk about how this mod makes Hircine's gift of the beast blood manifest differently among the 10 playable races. Looking at elves, dark elves will get raging hatred, extending the duration of beast form by 60 seconds. High elves will get golden mane, giving them an additional 15% magic resistance in beast form, which is pretty good considering you already get plenty as a werebeast as you level up. And wood elves become very fast hunters with the moon chaser effect, granting them 10% extra movement speed in beast form. Orcs will be given the primal rage effect, which halves attack damage taken for 15 seconds upon activating beast form, useful for transforming in the midst of an ambush or multiple attackers. As for beast races, Argonians get an effect called rabies, which won't make you foam at the mouth, but it will add poison damage based on your level to your attacks in beast form. Khajiit will be given the hunting instinct effect, which reduces the stamina cost of power attacks in beast form by 20%, which is great if you just want to feel like a giant and smash all your opponents flying non-stop. Moving on to the more human races, Imperials will receive Pack Leader, reducing the cooldowns of Howls by 50%, and Nords will get Varga, and in the Growl mod it grants you 20% more attack damage for 30 seconds after feeding in beast form, which is pretty powerful if you ask me. Bretons will be gifted Skinwalker, which reduces the cooldown of beast form by 30 seconds, which is neat if you're not going to be using Hircine's ring, but quite useless if you are. And finally, there's the Red Guards, who gain the Strong Stomach effect, gifting you with a massive 100 points of stamina every time you feed in beast form. This is great for more sprinting, sprint lunge attacks, and power bashes, and by the way, these kinds of special attacks have been slightly modified to work smoother than before. That said, in regards to stamina, it does restore pretty fast, so as a werewolf in general, you will be able to power attack often anyway. When it comes to Howls, you've got the same 3 options as in vanilla, and you will have to play through the companion storyline to unlock the 2 that aren't default by finding the relevant totems. Howls now have a 15-second cooldown and have been made more powerful for the most part. Howl of Terror, which can be used to cause nearby living targets within 100 feet to flee in terror for 15 seconds, has actually had this duration reduced from 60 seconds and has an increased level cap without any perks needed. The reduction in fear duration was implemented by the mod author with the idea that 60 seconds of fear ends up a hassle hassle because it causes you to chase down fleeing enemies for too long. I actually agree that 15 seconds does feel like a perfect amount of time to have foes start running helplessly, yet stay close enough to be mowed down by your inescapable jaws, and 15 seconds is the cooldown time anyway, so you can howl and send them fleeing right after if you want to. Howl of the Hunt will allow you to detect living targets in a 300-foot radius, and without any perks needed, it will distinguish between targets that are in combat plus those searching for you, and those entirely unaware of your presence. Finally, Howl of Brotherhood will allow you to summon 2 ethereal wolves to your side, and 1 big ethereal bear if you're a werebear. This will all change and be upgraded with the perks. The mod page says it will summon bears as in plural, but again for me it was 2 wolves or 1 bear until you get the perks for them to be werebeasts, and then it's 2 of either. Speaking of which, it's time to talk about the werebeast perk tree and all the neat bonuses you can unlock for your lycanthrope. The Growl mod has a total amount of 19 werebeast perks as opposed to the 8 of vanilla Skyrim, and including ranks it allows you to spend 27 perk points versus the 11 points needed to max out vanilla. To get perk points, you feed on corpses, and progress will be based on the amount of feeding you do. Due to the increased number of perk points needed to max out the werebeast tree entirely, each perk point is unlocked with only 1 more feeding than the last, as opposed to 2 in vanilla Skyrim. There's 4 ranks of bestial strength, just like vanilla Skyrim, making attack damage raised by 25, 50, 75, and then 100%, and up from there you've got animal vigor remaining, also granting 100 more points of health and stamina in beast form. Up from here it branches out into 3 options, all of which are great. You've got infinite duress on the left, which makes frenzy attacks in beast form stun targets for the duration of the attack, and just for more clarity, basically what happens is enemies are staggered when you hold down one of the attack buttons, causing you to do that multiple swipes power attack. If you're on the move and press the same button, you'll just do a single power swipe, which as you'd expect doesn't stagger. On the right side of this section there's roadkill, which makes leap attacks, that is when you're sprinting and do a dual power attack, cause a critical strike equal to twice your stamina, and throw targets through the air. This is great for those mages who will have their magic convert into stamina and therefore do more damage with this attack. It tends to be straight up deadly in general for almost any werebeast character though. Finally, in the middle of these 2 perks we have supernatural strength. This causes backhand attacks to not only send targets flying like it always did, but it also disarms them. To do the backhanded attack, simply do a dual-handed power attack either on the move or while standing still, just not sprinting of course. Moving up from there, before any of the totem perks, there's a perk called Rampage that makes beast form last 50% longer in general, and feeding will extend the duration 50% more than usual too. Now the totem perks are not just cool, but also make the game a bit more convenient for constant werebeast use. So the Totem of Terror perk actually allows your fear-based howl to affect dragons, forcing them to land for 30 or 60 seconds, depending on if you have one or both ranks. This display of the power of Hircine's gift is great for those times when you're just out and about and a dragon comes out of nowhere, as you won't have to revert form to use Dragon Ren to start attacking it up close. That said, do note that if the dragon's quite far away, the howl might not be close enough to affect them. Totem of Ice Brothers also has 2 ranks, with the first rank upgrading your allies you call with the Howl of Brotherhood from normal wolves or a bear to ice wolves or a snow bear. They'll still be the red ethereal versions, and basically they look like 2 bigger wolves or an even bigger bear. The second rank will make it so you have 2 ethereal werewolves by your side, or 2, not 1, ethereal werebears. Also, just so you know, once the cooldown finishes, I could just use the howl again, and the original 2 werebeasts don't seem to disappear, so I could just end up with a larger pack of say 6 ethereal werebears running around with me, tearing my enemies apart. And finally, Totem of the Hunt, based on the Howl of the Hunt, which is the one that detects living targets, can now be used to shatter locks at close range. With 1 rank it works up to Adept, but with both you can shatter Expert locks. This makes looting much easier, again letting you stay in werewolf form and not have to revert form, start lockpicking, and and then re-enter beast form in the midst of a dungeon crawl, and that's assuming you've got Hircine's ring, otherwise you'll have to wait for a full day. Moving to the middle left branch, we've got a nice little perk called Lycanthropic Speed that not only increases movement speed by 10% in beast form, but also outside of it. If you're playing a wood elf who already gets even more movement speed, you're going to be one fast werebeast. Up from here, there's 2 ranks of a perk called Lycanthropic Regeneration. With both ranks, you'll regen 2% of your max health and stamina per second, again in and out of beast form. After this, we've got that perk I mentioned before called Spread the Beast Blood, allowing you to give your follower the beast blood by trading werebeast blood with them. On the middle right branch, we've got Feral Instincts, which makes power attacks do 25% more damage and cost 25% less stamina, and 2 ranks of Improved Bloodthirst, which adds 10 and then 20 additional points of bleed damage for a total of 30, healing you for the same amount. Finally, up this branch, we've got Swipe, allowing you to hit multiple targets in beast form in one power attack. This is great for the backhand attack, as you can actually disarm multiple attackers at once and send them all airborne. The far left of the Growl mod perk tree has 2 perks which are more for convenience, and getting them will mainly come down to preference. Bury the Beast will prevent you from transforming uncontrollably at nighttime, so if you don't enjoy that, maybe it's a perk you'll get straight away. After that, there's the Wolf Among Men perk that reduces the frequency of Silverhand Elite Werebeast hunters by 75%. Again, it's really a preference. If you thoroughly enjoy being hunted ferociously, you might not want this perk, but personally I find that after playing the game for a long time, I'm happy to reduce the frequency by this much, while still having them come after me sometimes, just not as often. Also, do note that the Silverhand in my playthroughs at least even came into cities looking for me, and the guards did actually help me defend myself so long as I wasn't in werebeast form, but I've seen the guards actually get killed as some of the elite hunters were much stronger than them. It can all be quite exhilarating. Also, with the mod configuration menu, you can get around all of that and just choose whether or not you want to disable Silverhand Elite, or decide to be invulnerable during transformation, or change the chance of moon transformations from 0 to 100% chance. And finally, on the far right side, we have Gorging, which makes feeding heal 100 more points of health, and Savage Feeding, which lets you feed off the undead, and for whatever reason, that's what seems to control the fact that you can now loot their corpses. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this FudgeMuppet Skyrim mod guide. Definitely give this mod a try if you're looking for a very fresh werebeast experience that can really help bring a new build playthrough to life. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like if you think it deserves it, and let me know in the comments which Skyrim mods you want me to cover next. I like to focus on ones that enhance the role-playing potential of the game and inspire me to start a new playthrough with a new Skyrim build. Social media links are in the description, as is the link to the video I made on the Winter Sun mod, which I highly recommend you use, as it's my favorite Skyrim role-playing mod out there. My name is Michael, this was the Growl Werebeasts of Skyrim mod, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.